Welcome everyone to Male Fuzz TV. I am Peter, that is Tara, and we are going to talk about Star Trek Strange New Worlds Season 2 Episode 9. It's called Subspace Rhapsody. So, full spoilers for the episode. It is the musical episode, which was teased a few weeks ago. I don't know if they announced it at Comic-Con, but they definitely talked a lot about it at Comic-Con.
I want to say it was also spoiled a long time ago by Anson. Because I think he spoiled that there was going to be a crossover and a musical and like some interview or something. Yeah.
Yeah, I know the soundtrack for it appeared on iTunes like a week early. So if you looked at the titles of the track names, It was quite spoilery. I never did, but I heard that was the case. And I've actually encountered that before. I remember looking at like the famous examples, Phantom Menace, where the CD came out and the track list and just said so-and-so dies.
I just said it.
Yes, I actually try not to spoil things, but that's okay. Yeah, so we got
okay, if you're here, you don't like Star Wars, you're a Star Trek person.
Is that the logic? Is that what we're going with?
Yeah.
I will say this. I always open the IMDb page mainly just to remind myself what number we're on and what the title of the episode is. And if it's early on in the show, maybe the character names. Obviously, at this point, no, I don't need that for this show. But the average rate in IMDb is 6.9, which is significantly lower than the rest of the episodes. So the nerds on IMDb were not fond of the musical episode. So we'll see where we stand as we go. So going into this,
you do not like musicals in general.
In general, I don't know. And going into this, I had a few different potential things to compare it to, right? The obvious one, of course, is the musical episode from the hit television show Buffy the Vampire Slayer, Once More with Feeling.
I have seen that episode.
Which was probably the first musical episode of anything I'd ever seen. And I've also seen some other examples, and the one that I couldn't remember but eventually did last time was the musical episode of The Flash, which I noted for being particularly lazy because other than one song, it was all just like famous like pop songs and then one original song.
It's just an episode
this
of Glee.
one, pretty much. This one is definitely more in the Once More with Feeling camp. In fact, there's a couple of little things that especially reminded me of that episode, and I think there might even be like a sly little reference to it in this episode. Just early on, there's a little bit in the conversation where someone randomly brings up bunnies, about turning into bunnies.
Oh, yeah, you're right.
And that so there was a character on Buffy named Anya.
That was really that really threw me off. But now I see the connection now that you mention it. Yeah.
Anya was scared of bunnies, and one of the memorable lyrics of that episode was her saying that it's bunnies, it must be bunnies. They've got beady little noses and eyes and stuff like that. That was like a big part of one of the songs. So
yeah, I think you're right. That's probably. I mean, I'm sure there's fans who are writers.
Probably. I mean, I don't know if I was stretching when I thought that, but as soon as she started bringing up bunnies or whoever it was, I was like, all I can hear is Anya screaming about bunnies now in my head. So I think that was
Have you heard
intentional.
anyone else bring that up or anyone else talk about it?
No, I've literally just watched the episode like 2 hours ago. I've not looked at anything. I've not seen anyone.
Okay. I thought you said you were looking at stuff, but
no, I haven't seen a thing. So
I guess just the IMDb rating.
Yeah, which I literally just opened. So, yeah, I don't know, like, but it immediately came to mind when they said that. And then the other thing that makes me think of Once More with Feeling, and I kind of predicted this because it's Star Trek, is that Once More with Feeling didn't just have them break into song and dance. There was a demon that like caused a magic spell that made them do it. And I figured this is Star Trek. There's going to be a reason why they're all breaking into song and dance. And sure enough, there is a science fiction-y reason. And not only that, they even sort of say that the ultimate solution to fixing it is that, we have to like have a finale. We have to do a big grand finale with everyone singing to like go over a threshold, which will fix the problem and it'll all go away. So they even use the idea that literally us getting our emotions heightened are going to make us burst into song. And, so they sort of play with the rules of a musical and the concept of the episode. And Buffy kind of did that too. So, but yeah, what did you think of the musical episode?
Well, unlike you, I am a fan of musicals. I see many, and movies and on stage. I do enjoy that Buffy, and I do think that's better than this. I think this is obviously got great production value to it, but otherwise, I kind of hated it.
Ooh, spicy.
I really could not separate what was happening on screen from the ridiculousness of all of it. And I found it kind of cringe. I actually didn't think the songs were that good. I think they were performed really well. And I think everyone is very special and very talented.
I was going to say talented is the word that you should have used there, not special, but yeah, go on.
It's so... I think it's just too weird. I really did not enjoy it. I couldn't stop from like cringing and then just hating it at times. And yeah, I mean, they took a swing. For me, it was a miss. I'm one of those IMDb people.
I think
the production value of it's really good, I guess.
Well, the production value of the show is very good. I would argue that one of the things, again, just because it's the obvious thing to compare it to, one of the things that stuck out to me versus Once More With Feeling is that, yes, it's all original songs and they are revealing their feelings, which is also what that Buffy episode did. One thing that stuck out, though, was not all of them, but some of the numbers, it felt like really under-choreographed. Like, there's one song between La'an and Una where they're just kind of standing facing each other, and it eventually cuts to things and they float a bit at the end because the gravity gets turned off, but for the most part it's just them staring at each other. And I'm thinking back to the Buffy episode, and it didn't matter how small the number was.
Yeah, sorry. When La'an had a sorry, I froze. When La'an had a her solo number, like, it was also just her standing in the dark like the whole time. Yeah.
But when I think back to that Buffy episode, no matter how small the number was, it was always quite playful with the, like, just, not even, like, when I say choreography, I don't even mean dancing, I just mean, like, where the actors are popping into the frame and how it was, like, jumping from one to the other. And the only time it did that in this episode, really, is when it was one of the ones where it was cutting around different locations in the ship, as opposed to their, whereas when they were just on the same set and looking at each other, it was just, like, a reverse shot for the most part. So it felt
Chapel
lacking
one
in
was
that.
a bit more... had a bit more going on and stuff.
Yeah, I think that was easily the best song in the episode. And I'm like, my two big things with musicals more than anything is, one, I do actually genuinely find it difficult to pay attention once they start singing, because for whatever reason, to me, like, music is like background noise to me. So as soon as you start singing, it's like, oh, I can do some other things while you're singing. And two, is that for the most part, this type of songs you get in musicals, I don't really like that much, right? There's like a boppiness to them. There's like a sort of upbeat.
If it's not for you, it's fine.
Yeah. Which is why, like, if I do like a song from a musical, it tends to be the moodier one, like the moodier song of the list. If there's going to be one, not that I really had one of those here. I think of the cast,
I thought there was a lot of moody songs in this, but I just didn't like them very much.
Well, they were still kind of upbeat from a musical perspective. Yeah, they were singing about being sad and stuff, but, like, so
did you like the episode? I don't know if you've said it yet.
I don't think I hate it, but I wouldn't say I like it that much either. It's kind of in the middle for me. Like I appreciate the purpose of it and what it's doing. I appreciate, like you say, the big swing they've taken, and I think this show benefits from taking swings on, like, gimmick episodes. But this one's less for me than a lot of the others. And I think another critique I would have about the season as a whole, based on this episode mainly, is that the Spock-Chapel relationship feels like it just started and then immediately they threw in the wrenches to make them kind of split up. And I'm like, why wasn't this saved till next season? Why couldn't they have, like, a season and a half of being together before you did the awkward, I have to leave for pursuits and other things, and have the awkward breakup?
We really didn't have too many scenes of them being a couple.
No,
I feel like
because they got together in, like, what, episode 4 or 5, and then last episode they started hinting that there was problems, and in this episode they're basically broken up.
Yeah, we had the one scene of them playing 3D chess and using it as a metaphor for their relationship, but I think that was the only time we saw them, like, post breakup with Spock's fiance, to, like, okay, here they are, I guess, as a couple, like, doing something in a more public area, but, like, I don't know, it just wasn't very much, so I think that is kind of disappointing.
A relationship on a show, I mean, unless it's like a throwaway thing because it's just like a guest star, it should feel like a status quo. It should feel like something that feels like the normal for a while before you ruin it and take it away for whatever reason you're going to do it for. And obviously, because of the original series, we know it's not going to last into like a marriage or anything like that. But it feels strange that it's this quick and throwaway when, you know, they did have chemistry. They had, you know, it was kind of sweet, like watching Chapel kind of flirt over him, and it felt weird. And it's not the only weird relationship thing in this episode, actually. But that one sticks out the most. So we'll get to the other things. So
I also did not. Oh, I guess there's like 3 relationship stuff in this episode, so I'm not really sure which one you're referring to.
They put them all in here. Well, the one we'll talk about the one I'm talking about if you want, okay?
Yeah.
Which is so half this episode is Anne acting all schoolgirl crush over Kirk, and Una's like, hey, why are you here? Why have you got a spring in your step? Oh, I think you've got a crush on a boy, right? You should do something about that. Kirk flirts back repeatedly. Hey, you owe me that drink.
Big time.
He's constantly making little eye contacts. He's saying, oh, we're a team again. I like the sound of that. He's like, all episode he's doing it. And then when she builds up the courage to tell him the truth and that she's got feelings, he immediately goes, oh, this is awkward. I've kind of got a girlfriend. What?
And she's kind of pregnant.
What? Which, yeah, okay, I get it. Her ancestors going to kill that kid in the future. Yes, we get the connection here. We know. But I just... Why are you doing it? Like, you've made this Kirk an asshole.
Yes. On top of being super bland. And also, why the hell is he on the ship again? Like, they keep shoehorning him into this show. And, like, okay, if he's going to have some sort of, like, reason to be on the show, I can see him, like, he has a relationship with Pike, right? Like, from... I don't know, I guess from like more of the Kelvin timeline and stuff. But if you want to do that, like if you want to have them like, I don't know, if you want to put Kirk on the show, like I imagine that's the thing that makes the most sense. Like pair him up with Pike and have them build up a chemistry to where Pike's like, I like this kid. He's going to be my replacement.
Yeah, what's the reason? He's shadowing, is it number 1 he's shadowing?
I think he is there to shadow Pike, but we don't get any of that.
See, he spends more time with number 1, so I thought it was her.
Maybe you're right.
But
I feel like she was telling him the history of her also shadowing, and it was helpful or something. I don't know.
Yeah, well,
but you may be right actually.
Because I think he said that he was promoted to first officer on another ship, and that's why he was shadowing the first officer. I think that was what they were saying. But to be honest, I missed a detail at the start, so I could be wrong. I'm kind of surmising that from the rest of the episode.
It's very good. It's really missing on their first officer, youngest in the fleet, and they're like, get out of here. You have work to do still. Yeah,
so no, but they spend all episode doing the cutesy, like her flirting, be shy about it, and she works up the courage to talk to him, and he immediately is like, oh, I know I've been flirting all episode, but I'm in a relationship, so this is kind of awkward. And I'm like, why were you encouraging her the entire time?
Seriously.
And what's so weird about it is that, and you might argue with me on this, I actually think this episode had the first scene where he reminded me of the real Kirk. Right? It's a small moment. It's a small little moment, but when they're having a meeting after the musical stuff starts, right, and Spock explains everything with the tear and why it's caused this, right, and he does a bit of science mumbo-jumbo, there's a moment where Kirk says to him, that was very well explained, Mr. Spock, I almost understood it, and for a split second, I'm like, that's a James T. Kirk line. I heard it. You could disagree all you want, but I heard a bit of real Kirk.
I think... Kirk's always had a lot of respect for Spock on the show, so I don't know if I see that as much, but I don't know.
Like,
maybe you're right, but I didn't feel it. It's got to feel like Shatner for it to feel like Kirk. You got to do something more Shatner-like.
Oh dear, he actually. What was I thinking? I was thinking this. There was one moment when he sort of gets thrown to the ground in this episode where I thought, you know what, this Kirk actor looks actually a little bit more like Chekhov than this Kirk. Like,
really?
Yeah, he's got a bit more of a Chekhov kind of look to him.
He's so bland. He's so bland and boring.
That's it, though. Like, shut up with the negativity. I want to say something positive. I think Anne does have a good funny moment in this, because she has the scene where she sings to herself in her quarters, and it's basically her talking about, oh, this unrequited love, and she's like thinking about that time travel stuff, and snap cuts to her with Pike being, "Sir, this is a serious issue. When people are singing, they're revealing emotional things." Like, she is terrified that she'll sing in front of someone, and I thought that was quite funny. I thought that was true to her character. It was very funny.
I did enjoy the follow up also when Pike gets a call from his girlfriend, and they're both kind of like singing the same lyric back to each other, and it's like, oh, they're getting it. Like, they have to cut this off, but they can't. So like someone else has to come in, and La'an, I think, comes in and cuts the transmission. So that ends with Pike like on his knees and stuff like that. Oh, the thing that did make me laugh the most though were the Klingons. Oh,
the Klingons who were like NSYNC or Backstreet Boys or whatever.
They were like a boy band. Yeah, that did make me laugh, especially because they teased it at first, where they're like, "Oh, the Klingons, apparently it spread to them. Nobody wants to hear that." And I was like, "Wait, no, yeah, I want to hear that."
Oh yeah, once they said that, you knew you were going to see it later in the episode.
Like, there's no way they're going to rob us of that.
But I was not expecting the auto-tune boy band and like the dance routine.
Yeah. Oh, and the guy who played the Klingon captain is actually the actor that plays Hemmer. So we got him back for a little bit.
Do you know, I thought his mouth looked familiar. I didn't realize it was him.
Yeah, I saw it in the credits.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I appreciated there was a few little lines and jokes like in between, like people reacting to things that I did appreciate. Like everyone freaking out about the singing. I liked Mbenga saying, "And I sang, and I don't sing." Like the way he said that, like really like stern. Although, to give it another little critique, the first time we see Mbenga this episode, he walks up with a smirk on his face because of the Chapel's had good news, and I'm like, "You just murdered a man last week. You should be like more conflicted with your feelings right now." But he's like happy-go-lucky Mbenga, and I realize we're doing an episodic Star Trek, but
you guys want anthology episodic Star Trek? That's the deal.
No, the characters still like progress, and like the past still matters to him. I'm just all I would want is him to look like he's not just having a cheery day at the start. That's all I'm asking. I'm not asking for introspective monologues. Just have him not look like he's having a fun day, that he's got a spring in his step. That's all I want.
Yeah. Okay.
It's not much to ask for.
That's
anyway.
a fair point.
Yeah. So, yeah, the songs are kind of hit and miss. I think out of the cast, you can tell which ones are maybe more like singers. I think La'an and Chapel sounded like they... Because I feel like...
and Uhura. I mean, singing's been her thing. And also Ethan Peck's... They're a pretty good singer.
They all have multiple either solo songs or songs where they have big parts of. Whereas, like I mentioned Mbenga, but Mbenga's only really got a few lines that are sprinkled throughout, like ensembles.
Yeah, he's definitely the Willow of this one.
I am shocked you remember Willow didn't sing in the Buffy musical.
I remember because it was pointed out to me by my friends who forced me to watch it.
But there's also a joke in one of the songs about it where she actually sort of just like, because she can't sing, you know, Alison Hagen says she can't sing, but there's like a moment in one of the songs where she's like, "I think this line's mostly filler," and that's literally the line she has in the ensemble song.
I definitely don't remember that. Yeah. I remember having like one song or one like line in a song.
Yeah, she's got like one line in a song that her girlfriend sings, and then one line in the ensemble towards the end, and that's basically it.
Yeah.
But yeah, I think
right there with you, girl. I can't sing either.
Oh, nor can I. That's not pretend.
Doesn't stop me.
Oh, it doesn't stop me either.
Should we sing the rest of our review?
I should have started like that. Hey everyone, welcome to Mild Fuzz TV. I'm Peter and that is Tada.
I don't know. I can't yes and when it comes to music.
No, I mean... It's so weird because this episode's actually a little bit longer. It's just over an hour. But what's funny about it is because, and this is one of the things I don't like about musicals, is that because effectively the plot has to stop for like a few minutes every time we get to a song, there's actually less plot in it than there is any other episode this season. Yeah,
that's why I really liked it in the moments in the songs, although it was very few and far between, but we would occasionally get like realizations happening to characters in the song of that pertains to the plot of how they're going to progress into the episode and get everything fixed. And those moments I liked, and I kind of wish there was way more of that. But instead it was, I need to have a model or like a big thing about what I'm feeling right now.
It's Chapel singing about having this chance to leave Spock behind, Spock singing about now being an ex-boyfriend,
I enjoyed the Spock one because it had more of like a math thing to it, where he was like the X, but also like the X in the equation.
They played it, into his character, and then Uhura went into a sad song about always being kind of a loner, but then it turned into a celebration song about how she keeps everyone connected, and that's important to her. Which then leads to the idea of like when we sing and we dance, this sort of like this meter goes up. It's like a video game. This meter goes up. We have to hit a certain high score, and to do that, we have to have the happy song with everyone singing together.
And we don't have enough, so call the Klingons.
Call the Klingons. Yes, they established that because Pike actually, his first idea is just to blow up this like space-time like tear or whatever it is, and they're like, that sounds like a good idea, until they test it and realize, oh no, that'll start a chain reaction that'll destroy basically. Because it's a
subspace thing, so it'll reach further faster.
And then the Klingons are going to come and do that because they're so ashamed of singing. So they're on a clock to like fix it before the Klingons get there.
They should start their own group.
So that's the episode really.
That's really it. Yeah, we got one left.
I mean, you get the two Kirks together. Did you enjoy that?
Yeah, I wish they had a song, a duet about being a rival with each other.
Yeah, I guess. Yeah, there was I honestly thought Pike was going to have a big song, but honestly, other than being part of the ensembles, he only really had that jokey song over the comms with the girlfriend, which wasn't that long. He never had his big emotional song where he really get into his character and like that. He's
probably not like maybe he doesn't have a lot of range, and so they're like, you can hit this one type of commanding note, so we'll do a couple of them in the ensemble, but he doesn't really have any moment where he belts out.
And that's fine. I mean, a lot of actors can sing, but obviously not all actors have to be able to sing. It's not really part of their repertoire necessarily. Not, yeah. Obviously some of them can do it because some actors do musical theatre and stuff like that, or some of them just naturally, that's part of what they do as their training, but not all of them do.
It's just too silly.
I do wonder, if they knew enough when they were casting this show, if they made sure Uhura could sing, because it'd be weird if she couldn't, given that she's supposed to be the musical one. But I do wonder... She does
it in the second episode.
Sure. But I do wonder, when we get to like musical episodes of TV shows, if there's like this kind of like, oh, we should do a musical episode. Oh, that sounds great. Wait a minute. Can any of our cast sing? Because I have to wonder, like, the Buffy episode also got lucky in that only really one primary cast member wasn't much of a singer. And don't get me wrong, there's a couple that stood out as clearly being more of like, Giles and Spike clearly were in bands. They sound like they're in bands, and they're the best singers because of that. And like here, there's a couple of them that really stick out as being more singery than the rest of them, but some of them just hold their own. Like, clearly they do a decent job. But I do wonder if there's ever been like a show where they want to do a musical episode and then they send like a text around the cast going, hey, can you sing? And like 9 out of 10 send back saying nope. And they're like, shit, oh well.
I can if you pay me enough, but it won't be what you want. There's actually an episode of Futurama that's also a musical episode, and surprisingly, or maybe not surprisingly, because maybe voice actors, it's just an easier thing to accomplish, is because they're so well tuned in with their voice, but like everybody's a great singer in that too.
Interesting.
Yeah,
I mean, I like the title. Subspace Rhapsody is pretty funny.
Yeah, and the poster I saw was good too. Yeah, like I said, it's a big swing, but I just really struggled while watching it to like what I was watching overall.
I think,
it's just too silly. What did the other one? I mean, I guess maybe I'm contradicting myself because I love the Lower Decks one, which is also a silly concept, but like I already have a baseline of I love these characters, and so bringing them into a real life version I thought was really clever and fun. But does that one have a bad rating too because it's kind of out there?
I don't think so. I think for me personally, when I'm looking at a musical episode, the Buffy one worked for me surprisingly well, and I think I've always attributed that to the fact that, okay, it's a TV show, we're 6 seasons in, and I love these characters so much and I know them so well that when they start singing, like the entire thing's not built around that. They're just doing it for one episode. So when they start singing, I can sort of be along for the ride. But watching this and this one not working as well for me, I think the other thing that maybe helped that is that Buffy's dialogue was always quite witty. It was always very memorable, and people make fun of Joss Whedon speak now partly because who he is, and because it's kind of like inspired too many people to try and copy him. But he was very good at that when he was writing Buffy, and I like that dialogue a lot. And I do wonder if because they were so inventive with how they spoke anyway, like scene to scene in every episode, that it just lent itself to be like, hey, they still kind of sound like them even when they're singing, because it's just as witty as what that is.
That show had some really good, well-established comic relief at that point too.
Yes,
which was dependable in a musical episode, whereas this one, like, I guess, Spock oftentimes is probably the funniest character, which is a bit strange, but the comedy from Spock has worked for me, but that wasn't really in this episode unless you count the fact that he's the first one that sings.
I think that's the shock value, is he's the first one singing, but otherwise he's too moody and depressed this episode to be as funny as he usually is.
Yeah.
Because normally Spock, even in the original series, with Leonard Nimoy, he was often funny because of how he played off the other characters. But I think with this episode, because Spock is hurt, you just feel sad for him instead. You don't feel like humor coming from him.
Yeah.
So you're kind of missing that. It's not my favorite of the season. I'll say that much. Like, I said last week there's 4 or 5 really great episodes this season, and I don't think this is one of them. So I'll say that. I do appreciate it for what it is, but I did find myself reaching to look at Twitter or X, if that's what they're calling it these days, whilst they were singing. Like when they were in the middle of a song, I'm like, and that's the other thing with musicals is like, yeah, the songs advance and like reveal what a character's feeling to a point finally.
Mm-hmm.
And it's interesting in a world where they acknowledge that they're singing, and it is actually like the people hearing the song are like, oh, we just heard you admit something, right? That's an interesting plot device. But one of the things I have with musicals is that I feel like 30 seconds into the number, you get what the point of the song is. So for the rest of the
repeat.
Yeah, for another 2 or 3 minutes, they're just sort of repeating and doing the chorus, and like they're just getting to that same point over and over again. And I'm like, okay, I can, check what's happening on the internet.
I might have been cooking while I watched the episode also, because I felt like I could.
Yeah. I feel like people who love musicals, and I know you said you do, so clearly it doesn't work for all people who love musicals, but I imagine
I'm going to Les Mis in 2 weeks. I can't wait.
I imagine other people who love musicals, though, there are going to be a big portion of them who just love this, who just love that they did it, and don't have the same qualms that you do about it feeling silly or whatever.
I think it's too much for Star Trek for me, and I don't want to be like one of the people who are like, this isn't my Star Trek or whatever, because I feel like I've been pretty open to these new Star Trek shows, but I do like it when it's not so bubblegummy. I don't know how to explain it. Like, everyone in this show is just too I don't know, like their whole life is a musical already. Everything's so fluffy.
Do you know, maybe, honestly, like, I think you might be onto something here. So, like, I don't know if I agree with your general take that it's too much like that all the time, but I think what you're hitting on here that I might agree with is that the tone of the show is light enough that there's not enough of a contrast by doing a musical episode. Whereas in Buffy, because it's this, it's got a lot of comedy, sure, but Buffy, we're dealing with the end of the world, the stakes are high, there's actual drama. The season before that was the one with the big realistic death that everyone always talks about, one of the most dramatic TV episodes of all time. So when you hit the musical episode, and season 6 especially is a very moody season, because Buffy is kind of depressed, everything's really sad. So the musical episode sticks out because it changes the tone of everything. But what you're saying here is that this show is already a bit too lighthearted and tone anyway, that it doesn't feel like it's changing enough to actually feel like it's really shaking things up, other than just adding songs.
And one of the things I've said I do often is like, I'll try to replace everything that's happening with a cast I already love, and like the look of a show I already love and feel comfortable in, like Next Generation. And Next Generation definitely took some big swings when it came to like holodeck episodes, Q episodes, And I could see like Q doing this, like making everybody's life a musical. I mean, he's definitely come close.
If
this
this was a Next Gen episode, it absolutely would have been Q. It would have been Q who did it.
It would have been Q, and it probably would have been funny, and maybe not as much musical stuff, but like, having Brent Spiner definitely would have had at least 3 numbers.
I feel like Riker sang. He played a lot of music at least in Next Gen, so I could see him.
Sure, yeah.
Into it.
Crusher, because she's a dancer. It definitely, and Gates McFadden has that background, so it definitely could have worked. But I think it would have been even better because, even when the show got ridiculous and had like, I don't know if you've seen the Robin Hood episode yet. I can't remember what season that is. Okay, yeah.
That was one with Vash. I remember.
Yes, correct. And it's pretty ridiculous, but there are moments in it that work, like, Worf saying he's not a merry man or something. I don't hate it as much as I hate seeing this. Anyway,
yeah. To be fair, though,
that's my rant.
When it comes to Next Gen, though, I feel like, it took those big swings, and I would say it had like a 50-50 hit rate. Some of those silly episodes I really like, some of those silly episodes did not work for me at all. Like, it really was 50-50.
I guess because the tone is so much more consistent, and I already really love the characters so much. I don't hate watching them. Like, there isn't really an episode for me that I skip a lot of in Next Gen. There's some I look forward to more than others, but like even that one, if it's on, I'm like, all right, this is good background. Whereas I don't know how often I'm going to rewatch Strange New Worlds. I'm probably going to take a long break before I revisit it.
Oh yeah, but you've always been a bit more negative on it than most people. Certainly more than
me.
I
know.
Well, it's clearly much better than Discovery, but that's the whole.
It's the tone. I think I just like my Star Trek serious, and
says the fan of Lower Decks who thinks Lower Decks is the best Star Trek show ever.
I know exactly what Lower Decks when I go into it. It's an animated comedy that celebrates Star Trek fandom. It's like Galaxy Quest. Okay, I know what I'm getting into with that, and I love it.
Okay. Yeah. There was singing, there was dancing, and sometimes I was bored because of the singing and dancing.
Agreed. Me too.
Yeah, I do think there's some neat little character bits, but I do think some of the relationship stuff does feel a bit weird. I think it's weird that Spock and Chapel are barely got together less than a handful of episodes ago, and it's already like that's them done. It's weird that we've set up this Anne and Kirk thing for him. Like, it'd be one thing if she kept pursuing it, worked up the courage, and he hadn't been leading her on, and he gave this answer. I'd be like, you know what, that's unfortunate, but it was good for her to like say it out loud, and she can move on from it now, and he doesn't seem like a dick. But because he seemed to actually like be flirting with her, like last time they spoke, this entire episode up until that point, it felt absurd to me.
Even after the point, like when she says it, and he like gets real close to her and he's like, am I anything like that, Kirk? Like she's already said everything, and then he's like, just kidding, I'm kind of committed already.
Look, I like the way
maybe he really was flirting. Like maybe he did. He kind of says, that I feel like I know you and I don't know why. So maybe it is just an instinct thing for him to flirt back, but like he was really leading her on. You
like how I look at you. How do I look at you?
Exactly.
That stuff is a genuine complaint aside from the musical stuff.
Get Kirk off the show. You have Sam Kirk. That's your winner. That's your winning ticket.
I was hoping for a song with just Sam Kirk singing about his mustache, but they didn't give it to me. So
just anything. I mean, he's the comic relief we need more of. He should have been the Xander of this musical.
Instead, Kirk is the Xander of this musical. Just a bit of a shithead.
The other Kirk, the James Kirk, yeah.
Yeah, James Kirk, yeah. That's what I meant, yeah. I realised now you've said that you were already talking about a Kirk, and I just said, except it's Kirk, yeah, James Kirk. Yeah, there you go. That's Subspace Rhapsody. So not super high marks. I mean, I'm not offended by it, but I do think it's one of the weaker episodes of the season. And you know, I think maybe honestly the biggest thing that came out of this conversation for me is something you said, which is that the tone is already kind of in a happy place typically anyway, or it's a lighter tone, maybe is a better way of saying it, that it doesn't feel like enough.
It's playful. It's a playful Star Trek. Yeah.
So it's not enough of a contrast to make the songs feel as jarring as they should, which I think is maybe one of the successes of the Buffy musical.
Look who brought something to the table today. Nice.
Look who engaged in lots and lots of Buffy talk today.
That's true. I mean, I know I've only seen the episode once, but it definitely stuck with me.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Honestly, it's the first musical episode of any TV show I ever saw, and it set kind of a high benchmark because it was like, oh, this actually really works despite the fact that I don't really care about musicals. And then, like, I've given a chance to every other musical episode that's came along, and like almost none of them have even remotely worked for me.
Well, you should watch the I guess the most musical like episode of Futurama is the Robot Devil one. It's in like season 4 or 5 or something. It's one of the last episodes before they got canceled.
Yeah. So, anywho, there you go. Let us know what you thought of Subspace Rhapsody in the comments. Like, subscribe, ding the bell for notifications, and you can support all the content over at patreon.com/MailFuzzTV to help keep it coming. But that is us. So thank you once again for watching or listening. We always appreciate it. Keep watching TV. Have you got any vanilla?